Welcome to today's webinar presented by Software Technology Group. Our commitment at STG is to facilitate the transformation of businesses and technology organizations through innovation and optimization. We are excited to have you as part of our audience. Our goal for this webinar is to provide valuable insights and ignite ideas that can benefit your organization. Thank you once again for joining us.
Hello, my name is Mel Tingey. I am the Chief Technology and Strategy Officer for Software Technology Group. We're a consulting firm located in Salt Lake City, Utah, serving clients all throughout the United States. Welcome to our webinar today. The topic that we're going to discuss today is on contract review, which is a topic that really is so critical for any CIO or CTO to periodically do to ensure that the way that contracts are functioning, the way that the vendor relationships are, that there's an actual structured approach to how we think about and review those contracts. And with me, I have Carol Finnegan, who is the CIO for Nicholas & Company. They're a wholesale food distribution company working all throughout the Intermountain West, and I think even into Nevada and California.
We're in Las Vegas. We have a distribution center in Las Vegas. So Nicholas & Company's been in business 80 plus years, family owned.
Wow. It's a great organization. And I know a lot of the real great restaurants here in the area all buy their food from Nicholas, and just a great organization. I happen to have a lot of knowledge about the organization and just really impressive, the culture that exists there. So before we get started, Carol, could you just take a minute and introduce yourself and your background?
Sure. I'm Carol Finnegan. I've been in Utah since 2006, came out to help with the energy solutions acquisition of many companies, integrate them all. And I have moved around to Nelson Laboratories, Franklin Covey, and I'm very honored now to be at Nicholas & Company, working with the Muscondas family and all the great team members there. My area of focus has always been on team building and enterprise optimization, business transformation, and I have an extra advantage because I was a paralegal for 8 years, putting myself through college, and I did contracts negotiation.
Very cool. Well, I consider you a friend, and You've been a great friend to me personally as well as to STG. Our CEO, Crystal Peterson, absolutely adores you, and we are really grateful for you to take some time today to talk with us. As we're expanding our services at STG to work more in kind of the strategic consulting realm, the topic of, or the whole concept of contract review is coming up more and more with clients where, either they don't have time or they don't have the expertise to really understand how to dig in and understand contracts in the right way. We've been able to come in and really help them get things categorized and organized correctly. I actually didn't know about your paralegal background. That makes a lot of sense with regard to your expertise in this space. It's interesting, over the years, I've been the individual in multiple organizations who often interfaced with legal in doing contracts. And so I've gained a great appreciation for the legal part of a contract to understand not only the tenets of what you're buying, but also the terms and conditions around the thing you're buying. So contracts usually come in two primary categories: a services contract or a product contract. And even understanding that basic categorization begins to help you understand what to negotiate, what not to negotiate, what's important, what's not important, and so forth. So I have a couple of kind of just for lack of a better term, topics that we'll hit. I'd like to ask you some of these questions, and if you want to ask me some of the questions, we'll just make this a dialogue as we go through this. I'd love to hear from your perspective, when you come into an organization, like, what do you initially look at? Like, what are you trying to glean initially in doing contract reviews?
So the first thing I'm looking at is the value proposition to the company. A lot of contracts don't get much attention except at the beginning or when they want to get out of them. But there's a life cycle to contracts where you want to make sure that, A, you are getting the value out of what you bought, and B, that you're actually using the products or the services that you signed up for. So just like a contract is a negotiation, so is the work of the contract. I mean, it's a constant back and forth with your supplier of the product or the services where you keep in touch because it's a business relationship. It's not a transaction, hey, the contract's done and you move on. It should be a living, breathing, communicated part of your job where you constantly meet with the vendor or the partner, and you kind of give back and forth what's working, what's not working. I think the idea of a contract is to improve both sides, right? So help the company, help the supplier or the services organization become better and a better business partner. And that's how I approach contracts.
That's awesome. When you enter into, because I know you've done a number of business transformations, what do you step in personally and
Yes.
begin to review them? Do you assign that out?
I have never assigned out a contract review.
So you
To
are doing
me,
that.
as the CIO, my name's going on that contract. And I may assign someone to do some research and review, or I bring in consultants to help me find the best product and negotiate terms. But when it comes down to signing and understanding the terms and conditions, I'm looking for what's the benefit to the company, what's an exit plan. I never go into a contract planning to end it, but they end, right? Whether it's under my term or the next CIO's term, I just want to make sure the company's protected. But it's win-win. I mean, I'm not in it to hurt the supplier or the vendor. We both have to have what we need in the contract. So I do review every contract personally.
Yeah, that's impressive. I take the same approach as well. I find that, carving out some time to either kind of break the contract up into, because some of the contracts can get quite lengthy, and, carving out time to read through them and take notes on, what is it really saying? What does this mean? Midway through the contract, toward the end of the contract, what do renewals look like? All those different things. I begin to kind of build out the kind of a summary, if you will, so that after I've reviewed it, I can look at my summary and begin to kind of go, okay, now, is this really in our best interest and their best interest? And I'm like you as well. I always look to what is the next generation of leadership going to do with my work? Are they going to look at it and go, oh, what a mess? Or are they going to say, thank you, Mel, for giving me something that I can actually work with? And just like in good architecture, the next generation is going to have to pick that up and run with it. The next leadership group is going to have to deal with what you have essentially put in place for the business.
Well, and business changes so quickly right now that you used to sign a 5-year contract and be done with it. And now you want to build in flexibility into contracts. I always look at a review period and also an exit during the term of the contract, like a review and a renegotiation point in the contract, especially if it's 3 years or more. And business changes, you have to, for the best interest of the company, negotiate a contract that's flexible enough to accommodate changes in the business, in the marketplace. I mean, COVID taught us that, right?
Absolutely. Any pitfalls or kind of challenges that you have seen that are systemic or kind of, kind of consistent kinds of things? Anything that you would offer up that you've seen over the years?
Yeah, I've seen some pretty hardball services providers and vendors come in and try to just, push their agenda through. And I think if you sit down and come from a place of honesty and integrity, like you just lay it out and say, hey, we're looking for a multi-year contract. We expect a certain level of discount. This is what we get from our other suppliers, and be honest. Don't tell them you get 70% discount because no one believes that. But if you have a knowledge base of what your contracts are, what licenses you have, what services you need, you come in with a position of knowledge and honesty. I have found time and time again that is reflected back. And if you're dealing with someone who appears to not be on that level with you, you can call and ask for another person to come in. You're not stuck with the representative they give you. And that's something I learned along the way, is that some people I just can't build a rapport with, and they're coming from a different place, and I don't want to be there. And so I'll just say, hey, I need to talk to your manager and see if we can't get a better camaraderie going here on this negotiation.
Yeah.
Sometimes that person will remain, but another person will come in.
Mm-hmm.
It's to your benefit, right, to stand up for yourself.
Yeah. And I found that as well. Sometimes even having another person at the organization in the call changes the dynamic of the conversation.
Yeah.
So,
And obviously, the person sometimes you're negotiating with is going back to their manager. So sometimes you just, especially if it's a very large, like an ERP or a very large agreement, you want more people in the room so you get all the decision makers there at one time.
mm-hmm.
And that's why I participate, because I'm a decision maker.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great approach. When you think about, in what you just said, there's a level of frustration, but there's also, you lose some of your positioning and your leverage if you're having the person at the provider, product or services, taking your information up to their manager for approval and then back to you. You actually lose that ability to get to a true win-win state.
Yeah.
I've personally always said, who in your organization, is it your boss? Is it your boss's boss? Who actually is going to be the one who's finally approving the terms that we're going to come to? And most of the time I have found that them working with myself as a decision maker allows me, just like you said, to then say, okay, well, I want the commensurate on your side. You're not working with one of my workers, you're working with me. Therefore, I want to work with your decision maker. It allows the conversation to be more authentic. You can be more, because I do believe strongly in negotiating in good faith, that everything that comes out of your mouth needs to be true and honest and accurate in what your requests are, where you're willing to give. That in the end, both parties should feel like we're coming to a set of terms that will actually work for both of us.
Yeah. The other thing I've learned is to bring in other business leaders. So if I'm negotiating a contract, say for our warehouse operations, make sure that they agree to what's being purchased, how it's going to be implemented. I mean, involving business leaders before you go to that final negotiation. We also have outside counsel so that if I have a question, I mean, I was a paralegal, but I've been a CIO for a lot longer. And I don't want to put the company at risk if I'm not 100% clear on a term. So I take a no ego approach, right? If I'll make my notes and say, this I get, but this I don't get. And so we can reach out in our organization. Also, our people and culture VP helps review contracts for just geographic location terms. And she has her areas she looks at. So I think having that team approach, it's not all up to me, in my opinion. I'm involving the business leaders. The CFO is always my best friend where I work because I interact the most with the CFO. And I want to make sure the CFO is good with the financial terms. I want to make sure the CEO, if it's a large enough contract, the executive committee has visibility so that we're all in it together because it's a business solution. Any contract, whether a service or a product, is a business solution.
Yeah.
And I'm not the one using it, most
Yeah.
likely. So,
Well, and Nicholas, who you work for, really represents, so like that's the, in many cases, kind of the core client that we're working with right now, where the actual way in which you generate revenue isn't technology. It's another thing. And obviously in your world, it's wholesale food distribution. And so the contracts that you're working on in technology are often the largest contracts the company is paying for. And so because of that, it really puts an exclamation point on the point you just made, that your business peers need to be just as invested as you are in the terms and what that represents for the business.
I'll even go a little further and say, I never shop for technology without a business directive.
Yeah.
That's old school, right? Buying technology for the fun of buying technology. I came in after that was the policy in most companies, but technology has to serve a business problem, or it has to serve a business strategy, a growth plan, a divestiture, an acquisition. or an optimization, the contract has to clearly state the objective also.
Mm-hmm.
And so the business owners, it's really fun working with the business units, the company owners, our co-CEOs or husband and wife. They're awesome. They have such a grasp of what's going on in the marketplace, and they're out in the front line serving customers. So they're seeing the effect of the technology out in our marketplace. And so it's a true partnership. It works the best that way.
Yeah, that's great. One of the things that I want to kind of shift to is a comment you made a second ago about bringing in people from the outside to help. Definitely, I mean, we as a consulting firm, it's a service that we offer. Many organizations don't have the benefit of someone as capable and qualified as you are to review contracts. What would you advise or kind of talk about with regard to having somebody come in independent and provide that help?
I have worked with a lot of companies who provide contract negotiation. And what I would say is look at their interest first. So is their first interest you and the best interest of your company, or is their best interest to make a commission reselling another person's software? So I'm not going to name names, but there are a lot of companies out there that say, hey, we'll look at all your contracts, we'll save you this much money, and we'll take a percentage of it.
Mm-hmm.
I never subscribe to that because their interest is in making money off of me saving money on contracts. It's not the right contracts, right? So it's not them looking at a business requirement. I'm sure there are some out there who do that, but I prefer what I'll call the agnostic, the independent reviewers. And I know you yourself, that's your approach. And if I bring someone in, I want to make sure they have the company's best interest at heart, not a motivation because they partner with a certain software. I'm always a little suspect when someone comes in and goes, hey, we can negotiate the best agreement with this company. I'm like, well, how do you know that company is the best for us, right? So if they come in with a predisposed benefit, I will say I'm suspicious. I watch a lot of crime scene documentaries and TV shows. So I'm always like, what's in it for them and what's in it for me? And our interests have to be mutual.
Yeah, I like that. You know, it's interesting. One thing I have seen personally over my career is how in a company, especially a company that's moving from, say, 20 million to 70 million, 100 million in revenue, 200 million in revenue, usually that type of growth in a non-technical company means that a director of IT or a manager of IT has been putting, pen to paper, signing those contracts. And in most situations that I have personally experienced, those individuals actually don't even know that negotiation is an option. They are often paying full retail, signing full retail price points for the products and services that exist within their technology portfolio. And so what I have done over the years is it's not a quick fix. Fixing contracts is not a quick thing. And so I'll just say it from the context of even how STG now provides the service. We just charge an hourly rate. We don't take a percentage of the savings, anything like that. We just come in to provide that help. And our motive is also, or our objective, I should say, is to also kind of teach to fish rather than just to fish. So we'll put in place structure so that after about a year or so of it, and these are just small touch points along the way. This isn't obviously full time, but the touch points along the way are built in such a way that the organization, after a year or so, can stand on their own and then understand how to then manage those contracts going forward. We first will categorize them because you obviously want your primary focus on the larger contracts that have the biggest impact. But the opportunity for change comes around renewal. And if you are talking to that vendor, a week before renewal, you have no leverage. If you talk to them 3 months before renewal, it's fascinating how, even if that 3 months starts to become like at the end of a quarter, an end of a sales cycle, where you start to understand where they might be highly motivated to re-sign, and especially if you have options on the table, legitimate. Again, always negotiating in good faith, not playing games, but to start to say to vendors, we're 3 months before renewal. We want to know our options. We have choice, with these different platforms, different services. We can go in different directions. Usually that much of the communication will immediately start to reduce the amount that's paid and put you in a place to have terms that are significantly better and different that can be a great benefit to the organization.
I love that. I have a chart at my desk, and I'm not going to name the names, but the people watching will understand who they are. I know all the major software providers, end of quarter, end of year, and they're all kind of different because they don't want to all end on the same date, or then you're not wise. You can't get wise to them. But the other point that I love is you can come in and renegotiate a contract in place if you're moving from a smaller service to a larger. So say you have 100 licenses and you've done an acquisition, or you're growing your company and you know you're going to make a lot of hires, you can go in the middle of a contract back to a supplier or even a services organization and say, hey, we have this growth trajectory and we need to increase our licenses, but we want to get a better price point and you have to tell them honestly what you can commit to. Every software provider on the planet that I've ever worked with will negotiate in the middle of a contract, and then you just extend the term. So you get more favorable prices for a longer term, and you cover all your growth. It's harder to go down, right, on licenses and retract. That really is only at your renewal time. But you can always expand your licensing, expand your services.
And then redo it.
And redo it. So say I'll use your company as an example. They sign up for STG. They want to do a contract review, and they're paying X dollars an hour. Hey, we want to bring in more people. We want to do more services. You're in a position of good negotiation. They're in a position of good negotiation. So I'm using that to say for software, especially, you can add more and get a benefit, not wait till renewal time.
Yep, I love that. Another thing to think about with regard to kind of overall contract review is vendor performance and what that looks like in the context of, call it accountability or call it reporting. It might be a quarterly review. Share some examples of where you've put that in place to help ensure that during the life of the contract that you're getting the most out of.
I will say that is an area that I do delegate, unless there's a problem.
That makes sense.
If there's a significant problem going on, I signed the contract. I'm going back to the supplier or the manufacturer and say, hey, we have a problem. But in the course of the day-to-day business, I'll say for our infrastructure team, they're working more often with the firewall companies and with the telco providers, and I insist that they meet with those suppliers, give them honest feedback, what's going well, what's not going well. A lot of times, even if something's not going well, you're in a contract, right? So you're bound. Hopefully you've negotiated terms where if there's a performance issue, you have some recourse. But you have to hold that provider accountable. You have to keep good documentation, right? And you don't wait till the quarterly business review. If something's going wrong with the telco, you're going to let them know right away. But I encourage my team, go back to that provider, help them be better for us. We're paying them money, and they're providing a service. And that's the same on the services side too. Right now, I'm in the middle of a huge implementation at Nicholas & Company. We have about 8 large implementers involved, and each of them has their style. But we have accountability. There's constant status reports. There's feedback 2 ways, right? Us to them to us. What can we do better? So I always ask suppliers, if there's a problem, what could we do better? How could we have helped to prevent this, or give us some tips and instructions, because it's not always one-sided.
Yeah, I love that. From a leadership standpoint, you really do embody what you said earlier. I love it. It's kind of that no ego approach, but it as a leader, it's so important to be humble this direction as well, to say what can we do differently, better. Vendors often are like shocked when that question is posed. And I love it because it gives them an opportunity to also say, gosh, if this is going to work at the level you want it to work, there are some things that we need you to do differently. And I love hearing those kinds of things. I've also found that part of the vendor performance is what happens inside the organization. I can't tell you how many times we've, gone to bat. A business leader, somebody has, fought hard to, make a business case for a piece of software, a component, whatever. We go at it, we buy it, and then come to find out 6 months later, it never even got
Sitting on a
implemented.
shelf.
It's sitting on a shelf.
Yeah.
And so I've found that even putting some implementation measures inside, where even the vendor is on the hook to ensure that we are in fact using their software. It's a funny thing how often it happens where companies will pay, $100,000, $1 million for software, only to find out a year later the company never used it. And so there's some tips and tricks that we've done over the years that have helped. I've been in-house on different companies where I've done it, and then obviously as a consultant to help organizations understand, number one, it's real, it happens all the time, and how to make sure that if you're going to spend that kind of money, that you are in fact executing and using the software that you've purchased or the service.
Yeah, I think one of the things I strive to do when I go into a company is like a cost benefit analysis. Sit with that business leader. What's the cost of the software? How long is it going to take us to implement it? Who's going to use it? And when is it going to be in service? And then you have to keep checking, right? And in prior companies, the going back and checking was an accountability for me and my team to say, hey, did this get implemented? And sometimes if it's an iffy piece of software, like you're not 100% sure they're going to use it, you can do a proof of concept.
Mm-hmm.
You can get just a couple of licenses and say, try it before you buy it. I have never been turned down when I've made that request because I'm like, okay, here's the potential. We negotiate long-term contracts. There could be this many people using it, but we need to be sure that it's the right piece of software.
Mm-hmm.
So prove to us you're a good fit.
And most they'll bend over backward to do that POC.
Yeah.
They really will.
Those are hard to do, though. The POCs are hard on the internal team members because they're using their day-to-day software and then they have to try out a new one. So you have to help. You have to be facilitators and not like, go use this and give us your feedback. So again, it's a partnership.
Yeah. Well, those are all the major points that I had kind of made note of. Anything that comes to your mind as we wrap up?
I would just say ask for help, right? It's a big deal to sign a contract. I never take it lightly. It's a commitment of money to the company, and I have a responsibility to make sure it is financially advantageous, it's advantageous to the business, and that it's going to serve us for the term of the contract. So I would say if you haven't been a paralegal for 8 years or had a dad who was a union negotiator in Baltimore or, it's okay to ask for help. I think the other side is the worst thing is to sign an agreement and then later go, oh, I wish I hadn't done that, or I didn't understand it. There's no shame in asking for help before you sign.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point.
Yeah. And, earlier I mentioned, one of the tactics that I take is, reading, building a summary. I will often take that summary and the contract and send it to 3 or 4 people and say, look, read my summary, look at the contract, tell me what I missed. Because that ability to have another set of eyes, another perspective, look at it. And I do the same thing. I love involving the business folks. The other thing I would offer up in conclusion is that as much as you can automate the reminder element, whether you have a tool like Jira or some other, contract management, you might have an actual contract management system.
Or spreadsheet.
Or a spreadsheet. Often I have found I love having good CFO friends, controller friends inside of companies. And so it's oftentimes they will be even willing to help in that as well, where if you build out a spreadsheet or some kind of mechanism, they will often have processes internally where they can say, okay, this contract is up for renewal in 3 months. And especially the big ones that they will they will say, okay, let's pull the group together. Let's kind of talk about, where are we at right now? What does this mean? And what is the approach we're going to take in our strategy with this particular vendor? But even a smaller company is going to have upwards of 40, 50, 60 contracts. And so it gets pretty unwieldy pretty quickly if you don't build some structure around it. And what you don't want to do is to go into auto renewals on everything, because that will spell out either an automatic increase or just know that you're paying retail on every contract that's coming
That's
through.
the first clause I take out of every contract. I don't
Yeah.
do auto renewals.
I agree. I agree. So, well, thank you. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you,
and
Mel.
This is a great conversation.
And I'm a fan of Crystal as well.
I think we all are. She's great. Thank you so much.
We hope you found value in today's webinar. If you wish to delve deeper into how STG can contribute to the innovation and optimization of your organization, please visit our website at stgconsulting.com for more information. Thank you for being with us today. We wish you a fantastic day ahead.